Okay. So as we get ourselves settled, again, I think Gavin has some paper and some pens for all of you who might want to take notes. For some of you, you come to Bamboo Bodies classes, and for those who are brand new, never met me before, because either your acupuncturist or a friend referred you, and you think, Bamboo, what? Let's start all the way back. First off, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Angie McClure. I am a neuro-based movement therapist and a functional Chinese medicine coach. This means I studied the brain for how we move. This means I also studied for the seasons for how we live. And in a nutshell, I want to talk about that today with you all. Bamboo Bodies is a class that I created coming up on maybe 18 years ago in New York City, because at the time, I noticed that there was a big disparity between young people classes and geriatric classes, and there was nothing in between. And while I was very interested in learning to teach seniors, the only education I really got was genuinely geriatric classes. Blowing up a balloon, not them, me, that's too hard for them, but giving them a balloon and saying, okay, squeeze that little balloon between your legs, aren't you just cute? And I thought, that's awful. At the time living in New York City, I tell you what, working around people who would be considered my grandmother were not grandmother-like. Very quickly, I learned that people as they age were tough as nails, and I genuinely had a very faulty misconception. Part of that is because, aside from my grandparents, I wasn't around anyone else of an older senior stature. And so it was becoming more accustomed with my friends, with my exposure and teaching classes, that I realized that there were seasons that were not being taught. There was something that wasn't being educated. And when it comes down to it, I think for many of us, it's kind of this guessing game. We're just aging, and if you do okay, you don't see a doctor, you're doing well, right? And we continue onward, and it's only when things start to get rocky, we think, well, what's going on? And we start looking and we seek help. But I think that's another component to it that I started learning as I started studying functional Chinese medicine and coming into the neurology of things, is that there's a broad spectrum, but if you don't use it, you lose it. And in today's conversation, I want to talk about where we've lost our connection with the seasons, both externally and what happens out there, but also internally. And that's the basis of our conversation for today, is adapting with the seasons rhythm for better health. Coming into this, oops, hang on, I got a quick story for you all. I felt like this was an appropriate one because I think many of us coming in and knowing quite a few of you, you are incredibly intelligent and experienced individuals, but coming into a place to learn something new, I felt this story gives everybody a nice opportunity to find a connection with, how do I learn something new? There was a professor who sought out to learn Zen from a Zen master. So he asked for permission, and the Zen master accepted him, and he went to go teach this professor about Zen, the way of life, about coming into yourself. And every time the Zen master would start to talk, the professor would interject with his own ideas, his own opinions, and eventually the Zen master couldn't get a word in edgewise. So he began to fill a little cup of tea. And as he filled the cup of tea, he continued to let the tea fill, and soon the tea was overflowing and tea spilled everywhere. And it was at that point the professor realized, oh, the cup is overflowing, what are you doing? And the Zen master said, just like the cup that's overflowing, so too are you, so full that you're not allowing me to give you anything. And so the point is that we have to kind of empty our cup a little bit so that we can allow something to come in. And in the beginning of Bamboo Bodies, this is probably one of my favorite concepts, is that we bring movement into ideology and ideology into movement. So for those who are familiar with me on a bowing down to the phoenix, we come down to bow down to the phoenix because the action of a bow is essentially lowering yourself from someone else, a sense of humility, if you will. And what I'll tend to tell people in class is that we're checking our ego at the door. And I suppose that's my odd disclaimer for this class, is just checking our own ego at the door, myself included. Though I have the mic, that's a nice privilege. I myself will check ego at the door because I want for you to ask me questions. Please feel free to that. And then also I do have support. My husband Gavin is a Chinese medicine practitioner. He's an acupuncturist here in town. So if I can't answer it, maybe he can answer it. So we'll be your virtual Google, if you will, for any questions that you have. But And coming into the sense of our cup being over full, Bonnie and I were just chatting about the reality of, does everyone here, you don't have to raise your hands, but just kind of feel like your cup is a little full right now? And then you all came here being like, oh, okay, I'll learn this autumn thing and maybe how to get a little bit better with my health. But the truth of the matter is that my job is working with people to try and help them not fill up their cup, but to try and empty their cup so we can make a little room for changes and shifts. But I hear over and over and over again, I just don't have the room. Every single thing is so chaotic. I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the privilege to be able to understand or to study. And the truth is that we can actually come into this cute little guy here, known as Huntun. This is the Chinese mythological creature of chaos, more specifically, primal chaos. The story of Huntun is quite interesting because, known for its faceless features, it highlights the directionless confusion that comes from chaos. And I think all too often, we've got to take moment in understanding that we are in a state of chaos, whether it's personally or just in the broader scope of things. That can create a moment of freeze for many of us. This morning, I was thinking about this as my son celebrated his 9th birthday yesterday, and we're old school. We got him a DVD player. And in getting him a DVD player, it was interesting because he has only a few videos. And with those few videos, he was watching it. And he was not only watching it once, but he was watching the thing a couple times at some point to my own dismay. But it made me think, back in the old day of VHS or even DVD, that when you wanted to watch something, you would go to your collection and you would have only 5, or maybe you're one of those with the 50 videos, but you would choose something because that's all you had. You'd play, you'd watch, you'd enjoy. Where nowadays, because we have such an infinite amount of choice, how many of you who are looking for a movie for Friday night and is spending an hour going, I don't see anything on Netflix. All right, well, check on Hulu, see what's on there. Isn't there supposed to be something on Paramount? I don't know, let's check on here. I mean, the choices are infinite where we'll catch ourselves an hour later not knowing what to watch, and time has passed for now it's too late for a darn movie. I think that echoes in our own health because there's so many options out there. We're hearing so many things that either contradict one another or there's so much that you're supposed to do. You're thinking, where and how do I fit this in? This is Huntun. This is the chaos for so many of us where we come into that state of freeze, really. And that's where I want to bring us into a little sharp turn here because on that same note of so much information, has anyone noticed this really interesting shift in longevity, almost on a way of immortality? Like a lot of these people who are making tons of money are like borrowing plasma from their kids to be like, I think I can live forever. There's all these new shifts in science about trying to find a way to really lessen those biological numbers. So instead of being at the age chronologically of 57, biologically it says I'm 37. Well, good for you. You get hit by a bus tomorrow. So really, when it comes down to this, when we're searching for immortality, when we're searching for longevity, there's still something that's so empty. There's still something that's missing. And this is a component that I find that as everyone's looking for what to do, there was at one point a little book on what to do. Now, this is a quick component that I want to introduce, the Huangdi Neijing. This is a compilation of patterns that happen through the seasons, of reflections of accumulated clinical observations, because at one point, science decided we should probably start compiling this together. Because before that, it was tribal, it was shamanistic, it was myth, it was lore, and there was guessing. And I'm not saying that any of these were wrong, but this is bringing that information together. What did work, what didn't work. And as we pull these things together, the Huangdi Neijing is actually one of the oldest medical texts still used today. And within this text, there's 2 components to it. We had the Ling Shu, which my husband's going to be more guarded on because this is more technical, covering acupuncture, meridians, etc. But what I want to emphasize today is the Su Wen. The Su Wen is going to be more about seasonal qi and rhythms and something for us lay people that we can kind of shift towards. This book, as you will see momentarily, is incredibly cryptic. If anyone likes reading Shakespeare, buy it. For those who don't like reading Shakespeare, sit tight because I'll have to translate a couple things within this. This is essentially the structure of understanding that there are options for how we can continue to age. And this is how the book essentially begins. I've heard that in the days of old, everyone lived 100 years without showing the usual signs of aging. In our time, however, people age prematurely, living only 50 years. Is this due to a change in the environment, or is it because people have lost the correct way of life? Now, the way that this book begins is almost more so through a story. There is an emperor, the Yellow Emperor, asks his practitioner, Chibo, what's up? And the book is Chibo explaining and answering this question here. And it's really those guidelines that can make us move further and forward. And one thing that I just want to mention with the Huangdi Neijing, this is interesting. My husband will correct me on this because we were chatting about it this morning, but it was composed during the Warring States during the early Han period. And what was interesting is that this was created during a time of massive political and social change. I'm not getting anything cryptic on this at all, but I want to say it's interesting that this came at a time in China when there was a lot of big shift. There was chaos going back to Han Tun. And it came back into the reality of things. It came back to what's known as the Tao, the way things are. When there's so much chaos and confusion, what's interesting is that there always is a way, but we have to be able to focus in on that. And that's a component that I find very interesting because it can whittle it down to such a simplicity. I don't know the Mandarin on this, so I can't read it. But spring gives way to birth, summer grows, autumn harvests, and winter stores. Now, this is to be taken in much greater depth, and that's one thing that I love about reading different translations is coming from the Chinese. There's different ideologies, there's different aspects as to how this information is being taken. So while this sounds very, very simple, I want to focus in on autumn harvest today because as much as we think we know what harvest is, I'm going to challenge you on that one. That said, at any point, if you think, ooh, I want to take a picture, this is super cool, you are more than welcome. And for those who do have cell phones, when we get into a part of an exercise, if you want to be able to film it so you have it in your phone, that's okay too. It doesn't bother me at all. So continuing into this understanding of seasonal living, this base is where so many of us are so opposite. I taught bamboo bodies this morning, and everyone came to class, and we said, ooh, it's a little chilly. Debbie said, I felt that really first real chill this morning. Yeah. And so we're moving to do movement for the autumn season, which we'll explain here in a second. And all of a sudden, the heat clicked on. And it got hot, very hot in that room. And it was so counterintuitive to what we're trying to do, how our body is trying to acclimate from the summer, working our way through autumn to hit to winter, and the heat turned on. It's an element within our modern world that we do not fall in rhythm with the seasons. It's an element within our modern world that we do have this divide from nature. And while I want to emphasize that within Western medicine, there are some gems to Western medicine. But can you imagine if Western medicine also accumulated its understanding of nature and of rhythms? I think that's why in a world of chaos within the wellness and fitness and health industry, there's so much, because in the chaos, we've got to settle into the Tao, the way things are. And that's my hope for us to return to this, is using this as essentially a seasonal compass, a way of directing us into a rhythm, a pattern, an understanding, and even your own ideology by shifting your mindset to recognize that we can come into the opportunity of harmony. Neurologically, we would call this function. Now, this is one thing that I hope in today is in presenting seasonal qi as a practical approach to Chinese medicine. My hope is that this will inspire you to adopt not only habits, but mindful choices and implement practices that can minimize the chaos, helping you to achieve a state of balance, of harmony, of function, and health. So when we come into the translation, if you will, this is one of the many translations of the Su Wen, specifically around the autumn season. In the 3 months of autumn, this is called the period of containment and balance. Heavenly and earthly qi are in harmony, and the myriad things reach completion. One should go to bed early and rise early, following the crowing of the rooster. Keep the will quiet and calm in order to soften the punishment of autumn, collect the shun, and make the autumn chi balanced. Do not direct the mind outwards so that the lung chi remains pure. Most of you have no idea what the heck I just read. And so this is the part where if you're like, oh, I really want to get the Huang Di Neijing, it's going to become a door stopper because have fun reading this. So instead, let's break it down just a little bit so it doesn't seem so overwhelming. It really is very, very simple. This is a component to me that I love about Chinese medicine, is I find it almost more poetic. I find it very adaptable, and I find it in examples anywhere and everywhere I go. So when it comes to the component of autumn chi, let's think about this in terms of, for us in Montana, this is very easy to talk about it here versus when I talk to my people in Arizona, but the leaves are changing. If you look out, we see autumn. Most people never believe me, but autumn actually started August 8th. And everybody yells at me when I do that. So I just like wait and I warn people, autumn's kind of shifted. And you can kind of feel it because the day is getting a little bit shorter. But it's only about right now when people are like, yes, autumn. Yeah, we're almost done. By the way, winter is coming soon. Shouldn't surprise everyone with that one. But this is an interesting concept, and this should be a lesson for us all because we're going to talk about harvest here in a second. And trees are really good at harvesting. And hopefully this will bring a better understanding. Before a leaf falls, the tree pulls back essential nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus and sugars from the leaves and into its branches and roots. Essentially, it takes away what's not necessary, bringing it into the self, and then allowing the leaf to be free. We can think of this as harvesting its own resources before letting go. Now, I have two arborists in here, so I hope I'm correct on this. Gail and Leslie. Okay, I'm good. All right, good. I told you, there's a lot of educated people in here, so I'm always checking myself. My ego's been checked at the door for sure. There's a component in the beginning of the chapter that I read you from the Su Wen that said to harvest the mind and make autumn chi balanced. It's this word right here, harvest, that I think most of us actually are not familiar with. It doesn't mean go get your pumpkin spice latte. It doesn't mean go to our local farm and get your cute pumpkins and then either decorate it or just sit at their table with like 6 other tiny pumpkins around it. Harvest is a very different component. And in fact, there's a word in Chinese, shao, that I think explains harvest better because I want to just use it to explain harvest. Shao is loosely translated to receive, to collect, to accept, to put away, to end, to stop, or to take in. Have fun with that one. Do you see a couple things that you're like, well, that kind of battles right against one another? But when you think about it in terms of harvest, when you're harvesting something, my in-laws have a little apple grove, and the thing is that there are going to be certain apples that I'm going to be collecting, literally accepting. They go over my approval, and those are going to be the ones I'm going to be snacking on. Those are going to be the one that I'm going to make the cider out of, and those are the ones that are disgusting, and we will leave them for the deer because it ain't going to serve me, and it's too gross of an apple. Most of us, when it comes into this concept of autumn season, we have to look at harvesting from this perspective. Instead, we think of it more as abundance, everything taking in. But going back to my initial point, your cup is already full. What are you doing? So this is the component that I love about Chinese medicine from a seasonal perspective. The theme of autumn is to harvest. I do not speak like this nor ask people to do this during the spring season. But guess what we do during the spring season? Spring cleaning. I'm going to go through and I'm going to collect and accept and put away and stop and take in. I'm going to harvest during the spring season. But it's the wrong season. This is the season to do this. So if you're all thinking, oh, great, I got to go home and clean my house. Yes, you do. This is the time to go through. And my favorite word to lead us there is this is the time to edit. So in editing, many of us are unfamiliar because this is a skill, and in truth, this is an art form in and of itself. It's not about omission, it's about refinement. Most of us do not know what we should or shouldn't give and take away. And this is where it is a personal thing. I am called the black bag lady when it's cleaning. My husband and son are terrified of this because I literally go through the home with a black bag, and if it doesn't serve me, I throw it in a black bag, and then 3 weeks later, someone's asking me, where was that one thing? I threw it away. So we have to realize that there's an element of value that needs to be taken into consideration with editing. But most of us do not understand where our values lie. because to come into understanding value, and that's what harvesting really is. This apple is going to serve as something that I snack on. This apple is going to be served or used as cider. This apple is disgusting. I hold no value to it. I don't want it. But when it comes to our own health, when it comes to our own ideologies of us as individuals growing, how many of us sit still with our own virtues? And this is where it's something more foreign. This is where I love seasonal qi. It's because you were asked to take a moment and reflect on the theme of the season. Readjust your mind. We're so backwards, we choose to start something in the dead of winter, a time of storage, a time of just being. New Year's resolutions are meant to fail because they're completely and totally out of season. Spring, the time of rebirth, things starting, that's when you start stuff, not in the dead of winter. So now is the time to kind of clean, edit things up so you can make room for more. And this is not something that people enjoy because we recognize in our culture that we're looking for this abundance and asking our own selves to essentially come into letting something go is not normal for many of us. And what you are letting go really is going to depend upon the individual from person to person. But this is where, again, Chinese medicine helps us out. Because during every season, there's essentially an organ of focus. And during the autumn season, it is the season of the lung. The lung is as simple as this. Everyone take a breath in. Everyone take a breath out. Do this for me and sit up a little taller because that was a weird breath. Breathe in through your nose again. And exhale all the way out. Things are better in 3, so take a really silent breath in through your nose. I don't want to hear it. And take the longest breath out. See, breathing shifts our nervous system. Breathing changes our mindset. Breathing literally is a source of life. It's something that we tell someone who's freaking out that, hey, just calm down, breathe. I don't know if you know this, but you actually speak Chinese medicine. If you've ever told anyone to calm down and breathe. Lung qi moves downward. Lung qi essentially connects us with what's known as the po. The po is, I love this, it's your somatic spirit. It's every single thing that's detecting what's going on the inside. This is you being able to feel yourself reconnect with your breath and feel yourself calm. The po is very corporeal. It's very body aware. For those who are in bamboo bodies with me, we do a lot of scrubbing, and I always say this connects your brain to your body so you can feel where you are so you move better. That's the po. That's po training in a way. And so coming into that better understanding of where I am and how I'm settled. Anyone ever meet someone and they make your skin crawl? That's the po. Instinct, understanding what's going on. Po is the ask that I had, inhale and exhale. That action, that ability, that comes back to the po. Po also can be an aspect of our own emotions. We hear it whenever we come into anything of excessive grief. It's in our lungs. There's right, there's wrong, sure, but it's more just about balance. It's in and flow. Nothing's right, nothing's wrong. It's just in continuation and flow, which is where I love the breath. The breath doesn't stop. We could meet the most Zen monk coming in here, but I bet you if I choked him out, he'd probably start fighting me because it's very primal. And so when it comes towards our source of life, I always remind students, have you been training your lungs? Have you ever considered how you breathe? Because when it comes to it, everybody wants to boost their immune system during the autumn and winter season, but they don't go back to where these sources lie. Anyone ever been really, really, really stressed out and then you catch a cold and then you feel like you can't get out of the cold? That's very common, I think, in our Western world. That's your po. The po's been unsettled, the po's been disturbed, and due to our emotions, it affects the wei qi. When we come into understanding how to take care of ourselves, we got to go back to that root system. And again, this is where Chinese medicine shines. During the summer, we talk about our heart. During the autumn, the lungs. During the winter season, we talk about our kidneys. which could loosely correlate to your adrenal glands. And then during the spring, we talk about your liver. The heart is the only emotion and organ spirit that we've taken overseas and made westernized. Oh, Suzanne's got such a big heart. Everybody knows that means she's a very kind person, not that she's going to explode because her heart's way too big for her. Or I could say, oh, my son didn't hug me the other day. It just broke my heart. You know that my heart's fine. It's okay. But have you ever had your heart broken? You can feel it. Like you actually know where it is in your body, and we associate that with emotions. We never took the PO. We don't translate that over. So when someone makes your skin crawl, or you have this instinct, or you're just feeling heavy in the lungs, that's the spirit of the PO. And so coming into better playing through this, we have to recognize how important it is to strengthen the lung qi. And we're going to go into a couple little gentle, easy exercises, because as me, I always like to have little takeaways so you can take something with you and use it now. Information is great, but it has to be actionable. When our qi of the lungs is weak, it does make us feel a little more emotionally raw, and I want to stick on this one for just 1 second. My Qigong master would explain the lungs in this way, and I loved it. She would say, think of your lungs like an apartment. You have a tiny, tiny, tiny little apartment, and it can't handle much. But if you train your lungs, you can think of your lungs as a house, a home. And you can put a lot more stuff in there. Trust me, from a place that we had in New York City to the place we have now, we've got a lot more stuff in our house. But this is the component of the Po, is that we can handle more. And so when we train our lungs, we have bigger breathing. A few of you were in class with me this morning as we taught how to get the rib cage to move, get it to expand. I wanted you to have a bigger house so that more stuff could fit in. Anyone ever had to tell someone, I'm sorry, like my bucket is full. I really can't handle too terribly much right now. Breathe. Try and expand the lungs. It'll shift the nervous system. And I don't know if you know this, but the oxygen is actual fuel for the brain. Glucose and oxygen. So either go eat something or breathe or maybe do both. But those components is how we are coming back into the source of life. And this can help us with that overwhelm, that mental clutter, the chaos, the hun-tun. So we come back to the lungs to settle the chaos. This comes down to the Wei Qi. The Wei Qi is our first line of defense. Essentially from the skin, we want to be able to make sure that those external pathogens aren't entering. But when the Wei Qi has been broken down, it's like I don't have any walls around my castle. You're more susceptible to getting ill. And this is the interesting aspect, is that as you lose that line of defense and you're more apt to getting cold, feeling fatigued, and again, seeing here that our defense system, our immune system is compromised, let's go back to the reality of stress. Not to ask anyone here, but just think in your mind, whether it's an own personal experience or knowledge of someone else. Have you ever been diagnosed with something and then you have to step on this really fast conveyor belt of you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do it really fast and we're going to get you, you're going to die soon, so we got to hit you here. Or we don't really know, we're going to throw this medication at you. This is where all of a sudden the lung qi gets very weak. So it's a knowledge to us. When the chaos comes, we forget that we have these tools. It costs nothing. You can use it anywhere, anytime. No one's going to be freaked out at you by standing at the Costco line and going, they'll probably be like, yeah, good call, I should probably do this too. When it comes to any moment of chaos, you've got a tool. Boost that lung qi. Improve how you're feeling in the body to make those defense systems so that you're not falling ill continually. And this is where during the autumn season, when you go into the depth, it's important to understand that we need to live for the lungs. This is changing our lifestyle around this, changing habits, coming in to be able to move with the lungs. And we're actually going to do a little exercise here in a second. Most people don't recognize this, but you can use the lungs during the autumn season to pair with your movement. If I'm going to do, say, a squat down and up, that's great. But from an autumn perspective, I can shift this movement as an inhale as I go down, and an exhale as I come up. Now, I can't get a 20-year-old to do that. the truth of the matter is that as we continue to move through our internal seasons of life, we might find the value in slowing down. And the lesson of autumn is letting go of the chaos, coming into that sense of self, and being able to live and move with the lungs. And that's where recovering with the lungs and recovering by using the lungs is of great importance. So we learn to breathe to be able to settle that chaos. And one of my favorites, and I'll give you guys just something really simple today, and being able to eat for the lungs. There is a connection of food and your health. Just putting that out there right now. I don't know if you guys know this. It's unfortunate because a lot of people don't see the connection. But there are foods to be eaten during certain times. There are foods to be avoided during certain times. Truth is that most of us don't understand any of these worlds because we were never raised in a culture to teach us this. We use movement as medicine. And I think that's the one thing that's translated in our Western world. You need to calm down, just breathe. Movement is medicine. But you can also use food as medicine. But again, most of us, I think maybe like chicken noodle soup is about as cool as we can get. But there's a culture that is teaching ourselves to put food in to help to nurture, to take certain foods out, to essentially harvest within your own kitchen this season for what you do need and what you don't need. And I think that's the component, is how am I eating to find myself to be healthy? And that's where it's difficult for so many of us. But that's where it comes back to the art of editing. Now, I'm going to make things simple as I go through a little more of these practical skills because I just don't, there's a lot to talk about within this. This literally could be a couple weeks that we could do this together over and over again. But here's the first one. When it comes towards the art of editing and trying to create some lifestyle, some habit to create space for the lungs, creating space for what needs to be done, is finish whatever task that's been needing to be done. And please, for those who are married, don't look at your partner. Look at yourself. But what has been something that's been on the chopping block that needs to get done, and it's been there forever? This is a season to get it done. Maybe it's the bathroom, maybe it's that one project out in the yard, maybe it's this thing that you've had going with family members, maybe it's that photo album that you're always promising you're going to get. This is the moment to do it, by the way. If you've got something that you need to complete, that you need to finish, do it now. Just get it done with. And this is where you start to really come into your own values. Oh yeah, I guess this really is not worth my time because I don't want to do it now. If you don't want to do it now, it's probably never going to happen. So get rid of it. Isn't that funny? I mean, honestly, I can't tell you how many times my mother would always say, I'm going to get a photo album for you guys. Finally, she gave herself value and realized, I'm never going to do this. So guess what I've got sitting in my home? A huge box of just random photos and everything. And like 6 empty photo books that I'm supposed to fill now. Ain't never going to happen. So if it doesn't get done now, please understand you're probably never going to do it. And let it go. What an odd thing to think of. But all the things that you've been wanting to do, person you need to chat with, the tasks and tallies, if you don't do it now, let it go. Let it go. There's nothing that you have to hold on to. There's so much that we weigh on ourselves. Settle the chaos. Create space for it. Coming into letting go of not only the tasks that need to be done, but habits. This is the part where we do have to step back into value. And it does take some time. Simple as this, you can recondo your life. What's serving me right now? Some of us have habits that really are not serving us. Whether it's being on the news, maybe it's going through and adding on extra projects with friends. But this is the component, is what is it that you're doing that is simply not serving you because it's clouding up the time? And so this gives you that opportunity where you can essentially come to your practice. Talking about children, anyone who has kids or is around children, we know that this is around the time of the year, well, a couple of weeks ago, when school began. And it's always my favorite time to keep all the windows open in my house because I can hear the children after all summer long of just partying, that all of a sudden you hear, Everett, time to come in. No, Angus, time to come in. Oh, come on. Like you got to start bringing everything back in. Party's over, summer's over, it's autumn season, and it's time to get back to protocol. So finishing those tasks, good and done. Editing anything that needs to be edited and making space, good and done. We should be focusing in on a routine for breathing, a routine for movement, a routine for making our own meals, a routine for taking care of ourselves after the meals, a routine for settling in. Autumn is actually a really great time for journaling. And if that's one of those tasks you always wish you could do, try it now, because this is the only season that you're going to be able to complete those tasks. But this is the component of it, that finding your practice is so incredibly important. But I always have to remind people it can be so, so, so simple. So I want everyone to sit up in their chairs. You guys were already sitting pretty darn tall. Coming into the lungs. To move the lungs, this rib cage area is so important. I mentioned at the beginning of our time together that the move it or use it theory is very, very related to aging. I always say that age isn't the culprit, it's time. And it's what you've been doing with that time is truly going to define how you're aging. And so when we come to this component of awakening the lungs, massaging and mobilizing this area is important because A, it affects how we breathe, but B, it affects our balance, and C, it's also going to affect how we get injured. I can't tell you how many people, and I have some people who are body workers and movements professionals in here as well, and many who've been with me for a while have also started just watching people move and studying. People's torsos often look like a square, like a stuck square. Like this garbage can over there, I can't tell you how many torsos I see with legs on the bottom of that, and they just walk through Missoula. It's stuck, it's rigid. And as you learn more and more with Chinese medicine, it's about flow. And the truth is that most of us are so stuck. And for anyone who's ever lived, say, in San Francisco, Japan has them, and I think there's other newer buildings, that building a structure is this, if something moves it, it's going to collapse. So buildings have learned how to sway and to move. I remember learning this when I was in San Francisco because I was working in a building, and I was like, does this building vibrate? And they're like, oh, yeah. They have it structured where basically the building is constantly doing this. It's terrifying, but exciting at the same time. I need your body to essentially reverberate with that chi, reverberate with that movement. And it starts by allowing that rib cage to move. Some of you will probably feel a little bit better. If you want to stand up, you're more than welcome. If you want to stay seated, that's fine. But here's the thing that I ask of you. I want for you to first feel possibly what chi is like, and then I want you to bring this to the torso area. Long through the body, palms together, fingertips apart. Those who know this, you can begin your scrub. As you scrub, with that friction, you may feel heat in the center of the palms. Give yourself a moment and take a breath in while you're here. And as you exhale, the moment that you do feel that heat, separate the palms. You can keep your eyes open or closed, but feel that sensation that happens in the hands. That was like me standing in that building in San Francisco. But ask yourself this, is that happening in the rib cage, in the torso? And I'm going to say for most of us, the answer is no. So let's change that. Palms come together. There's an acupoint in the center of the palm known as Lao Gong. Lao Gong is essentially like the paintbrush. So we draw our hands together, and then we bring our hands like paintbrushes, and we start scrubbing all around the body, all the way through. This is an area that tends to not get touched very often. As you scrub through, don't forget, armpits actually go all the way up into those ribs, so you can massage around and through here, all around the shoulder. If you can reach to the back, great. If you know the person next to you, you can rub their back for them just a second. If you don't know them, don't touch them. It's just creepy. But coming into that back side, use your knuckles within this. You can even grab onto the skin and do little pinches around and through the body. Your brain has a map of where you are in space, and because we don't touch it, that map is really fuzzy. And so we're moving like in a car where the windshield is completely fuzzy. Take a moment there with that little scrub and just sense that change. It could be quite grand. It could be rather subtle. But regardless, from a neurological perspective, we've created neural drive to that area. It's like your brain just went, I know where your ribs are. Next is let's move it then. If you're more comfortable, I would suggest seated at the edge of your chair. This is called prime the pump. It's about moving the spine and the rib cage. It pulls on these fascial lines as you bring chest forward with a big inhale and exhale. The breath comes forward with an inhale and exhale back. For those who've never done this before, everything I'm showing you, take it down to like a 30%. Don't look at others, they're just showing off. So exhale. The reason why I say go a little bit slower and smaller is some of us, we've actually never moved the ribs like this, and this might feel like me saying, hey everybody, do the splits. So just gentle. Joint mobility has to meet you where you are at currently. Now, my favorite is when I teach this with the basics class, they're already seated, so your butt's not going to be able to move. Bring your chest forward and aim your sternum out towards the window. So chairs aren't going to move. There you go. Take a big breath in for me. And exhale, round your elbows towards your hips in that direction. Good, and come back towards me. Inhale, chest comes all the way forward, and bring your chest towards the wall over to your right. Inhale. And exhale, out and down. If you want to, you can reach one arm from side to side, and some of you are going to start getting a little wiggly just to open up, but that mobility is so incredibly important. No matter what it is, how you do it, bears do this. They find something against the tree and start scrubbing around. It's very animalistic. Think about how a cat or a dog, when they do that yawn, they're just terrifying. This is called pendiculation. It's opening up those fascial lines. Those fascial lines mimic and run along the meridian lines, the channels. And where you're working with right now is opening up the lung channel. It starts to the chest and it works its way on down to the thumb. And in fact, there's a thick fascial line that runs this very same connection. This line is really important because where the lung begins, right here, this point is known as zone fu. Zone fu is an acupoint that does encompass your lymphatic area, so you can get that lymph moving and grooving. And this is actually quite nice on a daily basis anyway, to get gentle little scrubs from side to side. This is how I wake up in the morning, as I do my full body scrub, do the rib cage scrub, and I rub to the front of that chest. But also, I'm around people, my husband's around people, and we're all people. And all of a sudden, you have a moment where you think, I feel like I'm getting cold. I feel like I'm starting to get sick. Boom, lung chi is weak. The second you're like, I feel like I'm about to get sick. We need to boost the lung chi. So I want to show you this, and again, if you want to do it with me, fine, and if you're thinking, oh, I really need to film Angie for this one, you can film it too, because if you want to put this on your little bookmark, go for it. But I crisscross my hands just because some people's elbows can't do this. So coming into crisscross to zone fu, the sound of the lung is zzz, like a little bee zupping around. So you take a wide breath in, and you tap into zone fu. Keep going, and what happens is you start working on a stimulus of air hunger. You drive the air all the way up for as long as you possibly can, and when you get to the end, you can give a little little calm and shoot that out. Notice what that does to that center of the body. Do it again for me. Inhale. Go strong on that sound. You're going to feel that vibration around the thymus. That's where white blood cells are produced. Go on, exhale, 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 all the way out and toward that very, very end. And when you start to run out of air, you're working on air hunger, increasing carbon dioxide to help that oxygen flow. And then a little... One more time, because third time's always a charm. Inhale. Now you could do this at the grocery store. You might freak some people out, but this is something that I will often do, probably around 9 times if I do feel like I'm getting sick. That long exhale ends with a little kind of clearing that stagnation out. Yes, coughing is a pretty good cool thing to do. This is an aspect of coming back into the pole, of readdressing the self through those emotions. It actually does have a vagal nerve component to this. So as we increase that vagal tone, it can, again, everybody's different, it can help calm and down-regulate. Savvy, you had a question?
I don't know that your microphone is picking your voice.
It's on and off, yeah. I think we're good, because I got mic. Pick up on the mic. This is where thanks Sally, this is where coming into building your chi army is going to be so important, because understanding that Your breath is one of the fastest, easiest, cheapest ways to tap into your nervous system. Most of the time, we forget. Most of the time, we breathe shallow. More often than not, we're breathing and we've got like an apartment-sized lungs. But the more we train our lungs, the bigger the house we have, the more that we can change. Change within ourselves, give us more space, or being able to work on ourselves simply from staying healthier. And this is the part that I love, and I have to come into this, is that allowing that immunal and emotional resiliency to come through. The thing that I love about resiliency, the neurological definition is the ability to bounce back from stress or adversity while able to preserve your psychophysiological resources. So it's about not freaking out. It's about going, oh my gosh, maybe I should be like bamboo and bend a little bit with it. Adapt with it. Nothing ever stays the same. This is why seasonal chi is so incredible, because it teaches you things are changing all the time. You are a creature of adaptation. That is incredible. We'd be dead if it weren't true. So there's an element of us coming back to those primal truths of I have the skill to adapt, but we don't train it. And this is the interesting component, that when it comes towards actually training resiliency from a neural perspective, you do this through breath training and through strength training. Strength training, let me define this, is not picking up something heavy and going, oh, look at me. Strength training is a completely set up methodology to better understand where am I to be able to move that shoulder. How am I stabilizing? How am I breathing so that I can lift something heavy with control, with the ability for all various directions, speeds, and loads. So I just want to emphasize that, because I don't want you to just go pick up weights and be like, I'm resiliency training. Understand that this is a practice to come into. It starts with the awareness of. And that's where, to me, it ends with that understanding. When the physical form and the mind are guarded internally, whence could a disease come? This is that latter part of the Su Wen that states, if you're taking care of yourself, you're going to have a better opportunity for disease. Now, let's not romanticize the past. Stuff happens. And let's also be real. We can't sit there and get better on a wish and a hope and a dream. But as I made comment, wouldn't it be incredible that with Chinese medicine, with seasonal qi understanding, Western medicine was like, yeah, brother, come on over, we're good. But how often when we use any alternative medicine, there's no awareness. Yeah, sure, you can try that. Go ahead, I don't know. But there is a connection. It's not one without the other. It's together. So it's understanding that when stuff does happen, this isn't uncommon. No one is balanced. That's the nice thing. That's not what balance is. We look at balance kind of like a teeter-totter in Western medicine. But what you've got to realize is that from a Chinese medicine standpoint, rather than looking at your health like a light switch, I don't know, you can cut back in like 6 or 7 months, you're not going to die of me today. Chinese medicine looks at you more circular, more like a dimmer switch, more like the, let's see if I have a picture of it. More like the, there we go. The Tai Chi. A little bit of good with the bad, a little bit of cold with the hot, a little bit of yin within the yang. This is actual balance. So in a moment of chaos, all right, you're at the zenith of yang, but there's always the anchor of yin. And where we are is that we're coming out of that zenith of the yang season, and we're about right here. We just passed the autumn equinox. So we're coming into that yin season of winter. And the thing is that it's always balanced. That is balance. It's always evolving. It's always moving. So we can't think that it's one or the other. And so when we ask ourselves about when we get sick, what do? Oh my God, go see a doctor. You have to go see a doctor. But I'm telling you this right now, there's still stuff that you can do. When you think you're about to get sick, I'm going to run through these rather quickly, because you can actually, if you're getting chilled, this is very specific, by the way. Ooh, I'm getting that chill. My joints are achy. I don't feel so great. Maybe I'm getting the flu or something like that. You want to take about a thumbs with of fresh ginger, chop it up, put it with boiling water. Don't drink it yet because it's boiling water. Let it soak, that ginger. If you're a sweet tooth, you can add a little bit of honey with it. And you want to drink that quite warm as you wrap yourself up with the ability to sweat. That's coming to away qi. The disease is right on the surface, pathogens on the surface. You want to sweat it and get her out. But that's the other thing is this is not in excess. This is about being able to replenish. There's foods that we want to then bring back into the body. There's rest that we want to bring back in the body so we don't go tippy-toppy over. If you think, getting that back of the throat, swallow, weird type of thickness, this is where you can come into scraping through the throat. I'm keeping it real simple for you guys today, but going through, and it's a down drain opportunity where you take your knuckles and you just drain down lightly. You're gonna feel that lymph. It is not there to hurt yourself, but you drain down and scratch down and scrape the throat. The other thing that you can do is gargle. Gargling is probably one of the worst things I hated to do as a child, but it genuinely can help because not only are you trying to moisten and help the back of that sore side of the throat, but by gargling, it's another vagal nerve exercise. In a way, another breathing exercise that you can use to calm the pulse, to help strengthen the lungs. Suzanne.
What's the gargle?
Gargling, some of us will just like good old salt and warm water and gargle that. Here's a little recipe for those who want. You can take a little bit of cayenne, a little bit of salt, and a little, oh, Gavin, what's the other one? Cayenne, salt, and for the gargle. Vinegar. Apple cider vinegar. And we have it in a little jar. I say about 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, a tisp of cayenne, a tisp of salt, and it sits in a little jar. And when one of us gets a tickle, we open up the jar and take a little spoon of that, put it in the hot water, and gargle that. Works wonders. Works wonders. The other thing is that if you really are thinking that you're getting sick, I know it sounds crazy, but people have this really funky understanding of acupuncturists. Usually they're the magicians because they've tried everything, and then they go, and they're like, yeah, I've done everything from everybody, fix me. Or they're the echo. My friend went to you, and you fixed her, now I want you to fix me. But the thing is that an acupuncturist, all they're doing is helping creating that flow. But the thing is that she isn't moving. If you're not living a lifestyle to allow for that flow, then it's really going to be a hard stop and go session. But one thing that I will say is that for most of us, because we are all standing, we're all doing okay, when we are about to get sick, an acupuncturist is one of the best persons to go see because they're going to help boost that immune system. When we're a little more depleted, they're going to help you out through acupuncture, through masa, through massage, through herbs. And then you get to take on my qigong, my breathing, my gargling, sweating it out if you're feeling the aches or colds. But an acupuncturist is an incredible person to meet up if you think that you're about to get sick. Because my darling husband and a couple other friends of mine are all acupuncturists, and they work on strengthening their lung qi in anticipation of you sickos coming in to go see him. I think I'm getting sick, go see him. That's what that's for. And this is the part that I always find interesting is understanding it's about that continuation of flow. It's about a relationship. And so having this as something that you can have on the dial, I always feel an acupuncturist is great. I was raised being told, you should marry a doctor, you should marry a lawyer, and I say, haha, marry an acupuncturist. Then you just go down the hallway and go, my throat's a little sore, my shoulder hurts a little bit, and then they can work with that. But their job is the flow of qi. They're literally tapping into areas where qi's stuck along the fascial lines, through the nervous system, and coming back into the habit. And every single thing that I'm teaching you here today is Chinese medicine. Most of us go to an acupuncturist and you're like, I don't know, they have the needles. That's not what they do. They go into a whole science, and this is part of it. But this is where I loved, when I went to school for Chinese medicine, I was asked, all right, Angie, you've been taking all the classes, it's time you gotta make a decision. Are you gonna go be a Chinese medicine practitioner and spend another $100,000? Or are you gonna go into the movement therapy and lifestyle perspective of it? and only pay $25,000. And I chose that direction and let my husband go into debt that way, and I went this way so that I could be able to teach from the layman's perspective, to be able to give you guys the opportunity that this type of medicine needs you to be a part of it. It's not magic, it's science. But if you don't understand the science and the lifestyle with it, then it can be confusing, it can be frustrating. And that's where, for those who do take pictures, these are the 4 acupuncturists who either A, you know personally, or B, have recommended this course to many others, so I thank them for this. But Heather Ellsworth is downtown, and she is amazing. I call her the Womb Whisperer. She's incredibly grounded, cool person. Her mom comes to Bamboo Bodies from time to time. Sean is absolutely wonderful. Actually, all these people are really grounded people. I think you have to be grounded to be an acupuncturist. Sean is absolutely incredible. He really has a protocol down, especially those with fibromyalgia, neuropathy, and low back pain is his jam. Sean's absolutely wonderful, and he has a practice here in town. Andrew Riviera is my girl. She's who I go to. And if you're thinking, don't you go to Gavin? We're married. I want to stay married. He's my emergency person, but I have an acupuncturist that I go to, and she works on me monthly just to keep me up and where I am. And Andrea is my gal, and she's absolutely wonderful. And of course, Gavin, who's here and works at Good Medicine, he's also incredible. The cool thing about Good Medicine is that it is also sliding scale. Because another thing to be mindful about acupuncture in America is it's very bougie. But in fact, in China, you literally go into a building and take a number, wait till your time is called, walk into an area and be like, hi, yeah, they don't want to hear much at all from you. They're going to look at you, see their tongue, and then they're going to point you in there and write down what points get, and you just go sit in a chair or on a table, and they're going to throw acupuncture needles on you, and they're gone. Because they know what they're doing. They know the science. They know what they're looking at. You're going to be sitting in a room with all these other people with needles in them, and you're like, hey, what's up? Okay, here we are. Good Medicine works on it in giving you the ability to come in consistently. It's not bougie when you got something going on. So that's one thing that I will say for those who are needing to truly get in and work on something, that Good Medicine can see you consistently as they do sliding scale acupuncture. And Gavin, I think, works on seeing 3 people within an hour versus someone who works with you the entire hour. So it genuinely depends upon how and who you want to be. If you want to have a little more of that one-on-one, then there's that component. But also, that's part of what this is understanding how to learn more about your body from a flow perspective. And I feel that having an acupuncturist is certainly someone that I would have in my Rolodex. And that's why I just wanted to bring this up to you. This, by the way, is of no means of sale, but I just wanted to put this up. Before I open the floor and ask 4 questions, I did have a couple people ask me this because some of you said, I know that what you do with the seasonal chi thing is an actual course. I do have this set up as a course. Every single autumn, you have an opportunity to learn about, every single season, you have an opportunity to learn about that season from a nutritional perspective, from a movement perspective, and diving into the science just a little bit better. I do offer a course on this, and because I had a couple people open up, I do not offer this to the public. This is actually part of the Bamboo Bodies membership. It's the bonus that I've given to them. But because I got a couple people reaching out to me, I did take the time, and I did put it as a product. So if anyone is interested at all, I decided, because I love you guys, I'm going to do the opportunity of putting this up and out for anyone who's interested at a rate that I wouldn't normally do. But if you're at all interested, I have a little video, I have pieces of paper up here on the table with the QR code. We're only for today, because this is, for the amount of time that I put into this is genuinely a gift if you are at all interested in continuing with Bamboo Bodies and understanding more about seasonal chi. It goes through the courses, and it's as simple as that. The QR code's there. You can look it up and see what you want to do with that as an opportunity to dive deeper into the seasons. It goes over recipes. You get a morning and evening routine, a qigong routine. It dives into the science, and you get this really nice thick guidebook every single season, leading you through what to do and how to do it. But that said, this is coming back into us understanding the aspect where many of us live in a state of disharmony and dysfunction. And to be honest, there's nothing bad about that as long as we can see it as a flow. It's when we get stuck that it becomes problematic. And so living with the seasons, this gives you that chance to come into that state of flow. The healthy and the times of not healthy, the excited and the times of boring, the moments where I'm really, really overwhelmed and the times where I feel in control. There's never a solid state of health. It just doesn't work. This is health. It's ongoing, it's moving, it's playing. There's ups and downs and highs and lows, and that's where I just simply want to end in saying, as human beings, when we have moments, we think that getting sick is bad, is wrong, is a punishment. But lightly paraphrased, there's a saying of woe to the man who never falls ill, for he never knows himself truly. And I think that's an incredible component. And anyone who's ever had someone that you've been with, yourself, who's been sick, knows that there's a big learning curve that when you get sick. But that comes back to resiliency. That comes back to a tool that we all have. And if you'll end class with me in doing this, take a breath in, and a nice long breath out. You have the tools within yourself. So that said, I'm going to open the floor if there's any questions about anything within Chinese medicine, within seasonal medicine, or you guys are all now all-knowing.
Could you put the thing that we're going to click on if we want?
It's right up here at the table. Yeah. So for anyone interested, I've got the seasonal living course right here. For anyone who's interested, it's right here. Debbie, you had a question here.
Yes, I just want to know your call on when you wrap and sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned a long time ago that you'd get cold towels and put it like over your throat or your chest when you're sick, then wrap in saran wrap, and then put a whole bunch of blankets or wool sweaters and sweat. And you actually turn, and I want to know your call on it.
I think the idea on that, and in Chinese medicine is a very big, like, no cold, no ice sort of person. But, and Gavin wants to answer this in just a second, but my thought towards this is that with ice or cold when done properly, the body's going to be like, ooh, that's cold, and it'll send the blood flow to that area. So a colder wrap, for me personally, and I'll have Gavin continue on this from a Chinese medicine standpoint, we're looking at that lymph, that flow, so being wary of cold, especially because of this area. But Gavin, I'm curious of your take on it. I know it's an area, I'm familiar with it. But.
So basically what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to increase the body's heat. So we use a lot like like the cold sock technique. You guys heard of that one? So you take wool socks, you put them in cold water, and then you put them on your feet, and then you put cotton socks over top of them so you don't get your bed wet, and then you go to sleep. What that does is the body thinks it's cold, so it ramps up its internal heat. The thing with the ginger is you're trying to increase internal temperature to move a pathogen out, and it's a similar thing. I would be wary of anything sort of on the neck area, because what that can do is it can trap a pathogen inside. So like a lot of people do cold plunges and stuff like that, which is great for building immunity. But if you feel like you're getting sick, it's not really a good thing to do, because you're consolidating that exterior and you're trapping that pathogen in when you want to get it out.
Okay.
That's just sort of a...
And I'm not worried about anyone here with cold plunging, but cold plunging, there's a time and a place, as Gavin said, but also specifically for women, it's very, 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 very different. And we do have an awesome cold plunge crew here, which I'm sure Corey, anyone familiar with the Peak, Corey sets it up, and they do cold plunging. It actually is really good for men. But they do a cold plunge here. I go almost every single Saturday to watch and take pictures, because I would die going into cold water. My body would absorb that cold. My body type doesn't do well with that cold. And in fact, there's studies showing that women do better in saunas. Women do better at coming into more of that heat. I just want to throw that out there. I'm not too terribly worried about this audience. It's usually 20-year-old women, 30-year-old women. I have to be like, ooh, careful with all the cold plunging. But men, there's actually like really incredible for the heart, the immune system, circulation and flow. So yeah, if anybody is at all interested in the cold plunge, you could chat with Gavin and he could get your name if you're at all interested. It's really fun watching people, if anybody wants to come with me and watch everybody go in. When it's snowing outside, the wind's blowing, they're stripping down to their skivvies to go in, and I'm hanging out watching them taking pictures. It's real fun, so. Any other questions that you all have? Yes, Laura.
Would you talk more about what foods to like bring in and what foods to take out?
Take out? Absolutely. One thing when it comes towards nutrition, I'm not someone who really pushes on taking too many foods out. Some really interesting studies coming out, hi Susan. Some really interesting studies coming out is, if anyone's familiar with the term orthorexia, orthorexia is when you come into your dietary restrictions becoming so restricted that in the name of health, you're actually restricting food in an unhealthy way, and it's essentially creating a fear of food. So if anyone's familiar with anorexia, orthorexia is basically resisting food in the name of health, and it becomes its own psychological disorder. So I'm giving that emphasis here because right now there's a lot of elimination diets and do this and don't do that, and you're creating a really interesting orthorexic health industry for a lot of people. The thing that I love about Chinese medicine is that if you really do listen to the self, you'll know what it is that you're wanting to eat. But coming into the fun foods, sugars, sweets, fried foods, alcohol, those are things that I think all of us, even from a Western perspective, minimize. If you're like, oh, I love my red wine, or you're like, oh, I love my donuts. All right, like, a donut a week is not going to kill you. Like, you're fine. Like, it's fine. But that's where it's also, if you think you're about to get sick, drop off on the sugars. Watch the alcohol intake. Watch the fried foods. There are themes during the autumn season. And during the autumn season, I actually have the whole course right here on the seasonal qi. This is the course. And if anybody wants to look at this, this is what the course is about. But in harmonizing your diet, you want to essentially be able to safeguard the digestive fire while accommodating the growing yin energy of the time. So reducing heavy, greasy foods, which essentially comes to build a phlegm. Raw foods is a really fun summertime thing. It's not an autumn thing. This is the time really to start cooking foods again. We're not till the part of winter where you're being punished with long, slow soups and stews that you're bored of, but this is something where you do start coming back to more faster soups, if you will, and coming into our vegetables that are still at the farmer's market that we can take advantage of. This is a really good season for soups, and I love soups. You can make tons, you can freeze them, you can make tons, it'll last you through the week. And it's genuinely something that it always sounds depressing, but if you do go to the soup farm and you're like, why don't I eat soup more often? This is delicious. Soups are wonderful, and this is a good season for it. It's as simple as this. If you're on Pinterest, look up soups. If you've got a computer, Google soups. Soups are going to adapt to what you like best, but I would say that's probably one of the best things to get into. And if anyone is a broth person, that's where you can start to explore it, because it's going to be what really is the foundation. And that's unfortunately is that I've never been able to really do a good like Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai broth, but half of it's going to be how you cook those bones if you're a bone person, but vegetable broths are the easiest things to make. Don't throw away the weird parts of your carrots or the butt ends of your celery. All that waste, talk about finding your value in it. I have a Ziploc bag in my freezer, and everything gets chucked into my freezer. And when that Ziploc gets big enough, I get ready to make my vegetable soup, and so, or vegetable broth. And so that's, I think, a big thing is looking at it from that perspective. So soups, but just to keep it real simple, soups would be a big one.
Is there a season that is better to go higher on protein foods?
This is a new one, and I just have to reiterate this. Be careful right now. Everybody's really excited about protein right now. If you can't fit it in with normal food, then don't buy all the powders. I'm going to start there. I'm not getting on Deb on this one, but please don't go crazy on proteins. Everybody's going really excited about proteins. The component to this is that you want to be able to look at meals with a balance to it, and not every meal has to have meat. We want to essentially eat the rainbow. We need grains if your body can handle grains. Everybody's so different right now, and when it comes towards dietary stuff, the winds are changing so darn quickly, which is where I do love coming back to Chinese medicine, is that there really is a strong hold of playing with what you're finding within the seasons, what's in your more local area, and we don't eat that. I mean, honestly, coming into those bone broths, that's going to be something I would say is a little more nourishing. But in terms of more protein, I don't think there's a season that pushes that, because the Chinese medicine value of it is you're eating with what you possibly can.
I would say fall and winter, because that's typically when
Yeah.
you would harvest, like that's typically when they slaughter animals or in the fall, and then they prepare meats because you do need more of that. You do need more calories for the colder winter months. So spring and summer, it's more lighter, fresh vegetables and stuff like that. It's basically the season. So.
And I'm not telling anybody that, like, oh, you're doing it wrong if you've got a protein powder, if you're working with a nutritional or nutritionist or anything of that nature, that's fine, keep going. But I am just saying that the hype around protein right now is follow the money, it's really interesting. Right, did you have a question? Okay. Anyone else who has any questions? Yes.
So if you guys were interested in this and wanted to dive deeper into any of the Chinese texts, I have a Chinese or East Asian texts study group, kind of like a book club. This is my little flyer here. This is at Good Medicine, the first Tuesday of every month from 7 to 8 p.m. This month we're going to be going over the first chapter of the Tao Te Ching and another Taoist text called the Chuang Tzu. It's the third chapter, second section of that one. If you're interested in that, let me know. And
I just feel that it's kind of an interesting way of shifting your mindset. And for me, I use the seasons where it's just a different way of looking at something. And I think if you're interested in diving into Chinese medicine more, it's just kind of fun to understand the complexity of it, the indifferences of it, and the flexibility. So again, kind of coming back, do understand that right now there is that hun-ton. There's a lot of information coming out on health. And I don't want to romanticize the past. I mean, people did live until their like 50s, like a couple, 200 years ago. Like we're just now, because of modern medicine, able to live so much longer. And we're going to get so many more centenarians. But also with that longevity, I'm wanting you to have a mindset of calm, a skill that you can use. Because if all of you here are gonna have to live until your hundreds, because that's one thing the medical industry will do, it'll keep you alive. At what state? I don't know, but it's gonna keep you alive. So this is the component of finding your rhythm, your pattern, your own sense of self in that aspect. So that said, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, and please go, I'd like to say get outside, but you know, the air's not the freshest, but it's beautiful outside. So thank you. Any flyers, a couple of the acupuncturists have their cards up front. Again, you have numbers, and then if you want, you're more than welcome to take a picture of the QR code.